Uh, when I was at home, I remember that I don't think I introduced myself yesterday because I talked too much. So I came here and I was talking. Let me correct that. My name is Mamoto Tladi. I work for Lesotho Communications Authority. And today you won't see much of my face, I promise. So we're going to start our sessions, and hopefully today we're going to be strictly on time. We have a presentation, a very important presentation that we're supposed to have done yesterday from Amazon Leo. I know a lot of people, when we talk about satellite, we mostly know Starlink. We do have another one from Amazon, and we have Helen online who would be joining us and presenting what the low Earth orbiting satellites can do for connectivity, especially to those areas that are hard to reach. Like we have been discussing yesterday, that we need to connect everyone. So satellites play a very important role in reaching those areas that are very hard to reach with the traditional technologies that we usually connect with. So Helen, I hope you're ready. Hello, Helen. Can you hear me? Okay, let's just wait for the technical team to make sure that Helen is able to hear us, and we can also see her screen as she shares. Hi.
Good morning.
Leonard.
Good morning.
Oh, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Moderator. And my apologies. I had muted, so I was waiting for you to call on me, and yeah, I wasn't hearing. But thank you, Madam Moderator.
No
Good
problem.
morning, everyone. Let me share my presentation so that you can all see it.
Oh, yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning to the esteemed participants. Thank you, everyone, for attending this important meeting. I wish to recognize the presence of Madam Minister and Madam SG. Please allow me to observe all protocol. My name is Helen Cheyune, and I lead licensing and regulatory efforts at Amazon Leo. We were previously Amazon Kuiper, Project Kuiper. We usually at Amazon, every project has a code name. Ours was Kuiper, after the Kuiper built. Now we are ready to go, and we are called Amazon Leo. Today I will be discussing digital inclusion and universal access from our perspective at Amazon. But first, I wish to thank the CTO for including us in this important discourse. Secretary General Madame Bernadette Lewis, we are grateful for the partnership between Amazon and the CTO. In many ways, we see synergies in our goals. So today, I will talk about who we are at Amazon Leo. What is Amazon Leo? I will talk about the digital divide that we all experience in one way or another. as several speakers before me have shown, and I will conclude by presenting ways in which Amazon Leo will contribute to achieving universal access. So who are we and what is our mission? Amazon Leo has the initiative to increase global broadband access through a constellation of satellites in low Earth orbit, LEO. We shall be launching upwards of 3,000 satellites to achieve this goal. We have several launches that are taking place now. We are ramping up the number of launches we are doing per month. Our satellites are designed and manufactured in-house, and we have tested our capability to deliver download speeds of more than 1 gigabits per second in test conditions. Our mission is to deliver fast, affordable broadband to unserved and underserved communities around the world. Our emphasis as Amazon, as always, even in our other ventures, is on affordability and reliability. Our obsession with delighting our customers drives us to deliver the fastest speeds possible. So we are preparing to serve customers in the Commonwealth. We shall deliver services globally with an effort to meet our customers at their point of need for inclusion. You will see with Amazon, we always try to find out what the customer needs, what they want, and then we work backwards from that to ensure we give them exactly what they are looking for. Amazon is committed to innovating on behalf of customers. We tend to give our research and development stage as much time as required to deliver an innovative service. We have the experience, as many of you have benefited from our other customer-centric services, such as the Amazon Marketplace. We have the infrastructure, and we avail that infrastructure to all customers, including governments and other telecom operators and ISPs at market terms. And we have the resources to deliver on our vision for Amazon Leo. We are able to deliver because we are sticklers to our guiding principles. I will say a little bit about each of them here. Our most important principle is the customer-first approach. As I said earlier, we start with the customer in mind and work backwards. Our services are designed to delight the customers and to provide a simple, convenient experience every step of the way. Our customers in this case include policymakers, regulators, end users, terrestrial network operators, and anyone we come into contact with. We will innovate to meet them at their point of need, or in the case of government, policymakers and regulators, at their point of requirements. We will make sure we are informed about the requirements and that we do all that is possible to try and meet those requirements. So we always seek to work out a win-win solution. Affordability at Amazon has a long-standing importance. We are committed to low prices. The chairperson of the USFC, Mr. Rama Shamole, and I'm sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, I had the pleasure of meeting him at the WTDC last November, and we talked about this at length. We are extending that commitment to Amazon Leo by inventing new technologies. Regarding reliability, Amazon Leo will deliver the same caliber of reliable, consistent service for our customers as we do in our services, such as same-day delivery from the Amazon Marketplace. Regarding safety, people are concerned about this. We are committed to operating safely across every aspect of the Leo system. We have designed our satellites to deorbit safely and not cause harm to life and infrastructure. In terms of security, our system is designed to protect the security and privacy of our customers by use of innovative technologies, for example, end-to-end encryption, and such innovative mechanisms. And last but not least, sustainability. We are inventing new ways to protect the space around the Earth, to make sure that we are not causing space debris and that kind of thing. So the issue of the digital divide has persisted and is causing frustration to government policymakers, regulators, and those impacted by it. Currently, about 2.6 billion people are unconnected to meaningful internet, despite numerous approaches to providing connectivity. We have yesterday, several speakers talked about the efforts that have been put in reducing the digital divide. So meaningful, these we are talking about meaningful internet in the sense that there may be coverage, but the service may be unaffordable and will not allow for impactful use of the coverage. This may be due to high cost of service, high cost of devices, lack of training to optimize the impact of available connectivity, and a myriad other factors. Businesses are the drivers of socio-economic justice. 100 million businesses lack reliable connectivity. Broadband penetration in Africa is lower than 50%, despite the proliferation of mobile broadband. Broadband access, we know, underpins the modern world. Yesterday, Dr. Christoph described how a child who has not been registered faces a less certain future. In fact, faces uncertainty and risk. Registration is one of those many functions of government that is enabled by access to broadband. Jobs are advertised on the internet, not in newspapers anymore. In addition, the internet offers opportunities for interview preparation. Anyone who has prepared for their interview online will stand a better chance of receiving a job offer than one who hasn't. Online learning, that is anecdotal, but in experience, that is the way it is. Online learning enables learners to access remote opportunities. It is no longer critical to travel and live out of one's country, away from family, away from friends, and away from your employment. You no longer need to request for study leave in order to obtain a qualification from, say, a European university. Telemedicine enables remote consultations, and even remote surgery has been pioneered. Now, the ITU estimates that it will cost at least 2.6 trillion US dollars to connect everyone meaningfully by 2030. Achieving universal, meaningful connectivity requires massive investment in infrastructure, in affordability, and in skills. Despite rapid innovation, 1/3 of humanity remains excluded from the digital world. And here is where we see the big difference. 93% of people in high-income countries, as we see on that, in that small square rectangle, 93% of people in high-income countries use the internet, while only 27% of people in low-income countries even have access to internet, let alone use it. So you can imagine that disparity and the impact it has for low-income countries, especially found in Africa and Latin America. We at Amazon have identified 4 major investment areas. The first is in digital infrastructure. We think an ideal mix could be fiber in urban areas, fixed wireless in rural areas, preferably 4G at the moment, could go up depending on innovations, and satellite in remote locations. We also need to make devices and services affordable. We need to make investment in that, both as operators, equipment manufacturers, and governments. Digital literacy is essential for people to meaningfully leverage broadband services for their development. How am I going to use the available internet services if I haven't been taught how to make use of them, how to monetize those services? We have a skills center in South Africa where we deliver free courses to anyone who comes in. It's a walk-in service. You go in, you get a course, you're trained on how to monetize the internet. Lastly, policy and regulation need to deliver predictable enabling environments for service providers. We all know that capital expenditure on telecommunications is quite high. So service providers need to have a predictable environment where we know that if we are going to invest a large amount of money, things are not going to change the next day. And most importantly, we need to have collaboration between governments, the tech industry, development finance institutions, and civil society. This is key to transforming lives. The recent study by Access Partnership, it was published in September of last year. The study is titled Unlocking Growth in the SADC. It looks at the potential of non-geostationary satellite orbit systems, NGSO systems, to impact economic development. The study found that NGSO systems have the potential to unlock $16.9 billion in annual economic benefits for users. This is equivalent to 2% of the SADC GDP at the moment. The study also found that at least $10.3 billion can be unlocked by using NGSO systems to complement terrestrial infrastructure. This at Amazon we can do by providing backhaul to existing terrestrial operators, and we are currently, we are in discussions with several terrestrial operators to provide them with that service because it enables them to reach new customers. It also enables them to deliver on their obligations for rollout. So we were told yesterday about the high cost of fiber rollout, and that can be reduced if terrestrial operators are using satellite as a backhaul avenue. NGSO systems can deliver the developments we've talked about in several ways. The systems use lower orbiting satellites that directly support lower latency, making meaningful connectivity possible. We can see in that diagram the comparison in the round trip latency on the diagram. For geostationary Earth orbiting satellites, which are at around 35,700 kilometers from the Earth, you find that you have about 800 milliseconds. That's round trip. For medium Earth orbiting satellites, it goes down to 250 milliseconds. And for low Earth orbiting satellites, it goes down to 50 milliseconds. So that is how the latency issue is resolved. The systems usually offer more cells, therefore delivering higher capacity. And because the systems are not terrestrial, they offer increased resilience, especially in cases of natural disasters like earthquakes and floods and fires, when terrestrial networks are usually damaged or unavailable. Satellite systems are seen as the systems that are available to help in recovery efforts after disaster because they are available. Now, previously, they were seen as that, yes, but the previous cost of having a satellite phone was so high that it became quite impossible to use. Sometimes you'd have maybe 2 phones available for a country or 3, usually provided by, there was a project by ITU that provided that service. But with NGSO systems, this gets to it's at reach, it's at hand for governments and emergency services to use. The systems have also usually embedded sustainability by design in their networks. We'll talk about the socio-economic impact of NGSO systems. NGSO systems offer high socio-economic impact. They offer universal broadband access, Amazon Leo can provide internet access even in the most remote regions, ensuring all users, businesses, and governments can connect. Amazon Leo can help bridge the connectivity gap by serving unserved and underserved areas. This creates a fundamental infrastructure for growth and promoting foundational digital access that fosters innovation, job creation, and economic diversification. We've talked about those courses to help people learn how to monetize the internet to make it impactful and useful. Amazon Leo can provide cost-effective internet solutions through widespread and affordable access that is crucial for developing local digital skills and technological entrepreneurship. And the purpose of this discussion today, Amazon Leo can promote an inclusive digital society by ensuring digital services and opportunities are accessible to everyone, regardless of location, and driving socioeconomic development and equity. Amazon Leo can help accelerate connected and digitally empowered communities. So, how will Amazon Leo deliver on digital inclusion and universal access? We will deliver these by addressing many use cases, some of which are shown here. Number one, we will serve enterprises by providing high-performance, secure connectivity for people and assets all across land, sea, and air. Number two, we will improve telecommunications networks by supporting the expansion of terrestrial, wireless, and mobile networks to new regions. Number three, residential customers will have access to high-speed, reliable services for individual households. Four, we are also looking at small businesses. We will bring small businesses into the digital era. These small businesses need services like this. For example, hair salons. People come to the hair salon. They don't want to be disconnected. If they can easily connect to the hotspot from the salon, that brings back customers. Same applies to small restaurants, even hotels. So the public sector is an important user of Amazon Leo services. We will provide resilient, secure, and high-throughput connectivity to support a wide range of missions and services, including public education, public health, and emergency services. Lastly, yes, emergency services, we will deliver reliable connectivity to support emergency response and disaster relief efforts. So thank you very much for listening to me. If there are any questions, I'll take those, but I thank you for allowing us to be part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen, for a very interesting presentation. And continuing to what we were talking about yesterday on affordability and ensuring that we connect everyone, the statistics are still alarming. If we say we have 2.6 billion people unconnected, and then in Africa, we have less than 50% of people who have access to broadband. This just emphasizes what we were discussing yesterday, that we really need to do better than what we're doing, and there is still so much that we need to do, especially for us in Africa. Thank you so much. I'll try see from the audience if there are questions, Helen, before you can disconnect. Any questions for Helen? Thank you. I don't see any questions. Once again, thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this. Yeah, it's unfortunate we weren't able to be there in person. We hope to be able to join you at future events.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be moving to our next session, which would focus on digital security, trust, and resilience. And our next session is going to be a panel discussion where we are going to talk about ethics in the age of emerging technologies. I'm going to call upon Advocate Tlhaloso Mpopo, who is going to moderate the session, and she will then call the panelists. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is well. As mentioned, I am Advocate Tlhaloso Mpopo. I'm a technology lawyer, and I will be moderating today's session, which is on ethics in the age of emerging technologies. We live in a remarkable and very consequential era. Digital technologies are now shaping how governments make decisions, how citizens access services, and how societies define privacy, rights, as well as accountability. Yet, we see that the ethical, legal, and governance frameworks meant to guide this very transformation are often lagging behind or sometimes entirely absent. Today's session brings together three distinguished voices who sit at the intersection of philosophy, policy, and law. Together, we will be examining what it truly means to build digital systems that are not only technically sound, but are trustworthy, inclusive, and just, particularly in the African context. We have 1 hour together, and I will guide us through a structured discussion, a directed question to each of our panelists, and an open Q&A at the end. And then I will close the session with a summary of key ideas and paths forward that emerge from our conversation. Now, let us begin. I would like to introduce my panelists. Our first panelist brings a philosopher's rigor to questions of ethics, trust, and technology. Dr. Clive Tendai Zimunya is a senior lecturer in the Department of Philosophy at the National University of Lesotho. He holds a PhD in philosophy from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. His research interests include logic, critical thinking, metaphysics, African philosophy, and ethics. Please help me welcome Dr. Clive to the stage. Then I'll move on to our second panelist. Our second panelist is Ms. Andisa Ndlovu. Ms. Andisa Ndlovu is a digital governance and public policy practitioner specializing in digital public infrastructure and inclusive digital transformation in Africa. She has worked with the South African Presidency and UNDP on DPI safeguards for South Africa's flagship DPI initiative, My Mzansi, and coordinated the formation of a coalition of civil society organizations to support safeguards in the country's digital transformation. Drawing on over a decade in broadcast journalism and communications, her work focuses on the intersection of emerging technologies and human rights, and on building safe and inclusive digital systems that improve public service delivery, Please welcome Ms. Andizan Ndlovu to the stage. Now moving on to our last and third panelist. Our third panelist shapes the legal and regulatory environment for digital systems, occupying a seat at the very table where policy is made. We have Mrs. Magamohelo Mufidikwane, who is the Chief Legal Officer at the Ministry of Information, Communication, Science, Technology, and Innovation in Lesotho. She plays a central role in shaping and advising on legal and regulatory frameworks that support the country's digital transformation agenda. Her work focuses on government communications, ICT policy development, and strengthening public-private sector engagement within the telecommunications and technology ecosystem. Through her role, she supports the alignment of legal frameworks with emerging technologies and evolving policy priorities in Lesotho's digital landscape. Please welcome Mrs. Mufidikwane to the stage. Thank you so much, Bondat. Now, before we go into the specific questions that I have for each one of you, Ndate and Bomme, I would like to welcome you again and also give you an opportunity to set the stage. Now, I want to hear from you, from your own vantage point, where we are and what matters most. I would start off with Memo Fidikwan. From your own vantage point, where are we in terms of the issues of digital security, ethics, and trust? And what do you think matters most?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So as a country, in terms of cybersecurity and in terms of the international cybersecurity, we have progressed, although it is not at a pace that is expected. So in the past 2 years, the government of Lesotho ratified the Malabo Convention on Cybersecurity and Data Protection, which sets the groundwork for the enabling environment legislation that we are working on right now. And the second instrument that the government of Lesotho ratified is the agreement establishing the Smart Africa and the African Telecommunications Union. These agreements are very important to foster the international cooperation with the international and regional bodies, and also to provide the capacity building that is highly required in the country right now.
Okay. Thank you so much. Ms. Andisa, I would like to hear from you. In your opinion, where are we now and what really matters most?
Good morning. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. I'm hoping that my English bundles will not run out because my Sesotho is very limited. I will speak specifically on Southern Africa and the fact that we are relatively late in our deployment of DPI, but it is an advantage in the sense that we have an opportunity to learn from other countries that have deployed digital public infrastructure initiatives before us. What is important right now is for governments, for everyone within this digital ecosystem, to ensure that we have safeguards by design into the systems that we are building. What does that mean? It means this: if digital public infrastructure, meaning digital ID, digital payments, data exchange, is facilitating how the state interacts with its citizen, but also facilitates how the citizen gains access to their rights, access to public services, then we have to understand that DPI then is not a tech project. It's a governance project, because it redesigns how the state and the citizen interact with each other. So then what that means is we have to build safeguards into the system. One, it's governance. We have to have legal frameworks. The frameworks, some of them already exist. It's just a matter of whether or not we implement and enforce those frameworks. What legal frameworks are there around data exchange? What legal frameworks are there around the use of my data as a citizen? If I've given you permission and consent to use my ID number for the purpose of verifying my identity, how do I know that my ID number is only going to get used for that purpose? And so everyone in this ecosystem needs to make sure that we have very clear legal frameworks, oversight mechanisms, and redress mechanisms. If I am a citizen who is entitled to a government grant, and if I apply and a digital system rejects my application, however, I am entitled to that service, where do I go? And when I go there to say, hey, a mistake has happened here, is there a redress mechanism, and can that be fixed? So while yes, we use technology to fast track our processes, we also need to be sure that we don't sacrifice human rights and dignity at the altar of efficiency. I was very happy yesterday to hear both the Prime Minister and the Minister talking about vulnerable communities in rural areas. How do we make sure that everyone is included, and I am not denied access to a government service because I'm not literate, or I don't know how to use a computer or a cell phone, or I don't have access to a phone. But also, if we're saying, for instance, we're zero rating the platform that we use for people to gain access to government services, fine, it's zero rated, but do people know how to use it? And if I don't know how to use it, is there someone who has been put in place to help me access that service, regardless of where I am in society, whether with regards to class or race or religion, or am I still able to gain access to government services?
Okay, thank you so much for that. I would like to move to Dr. Clev to hear from him to set the stage before we go into our individual questions.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
And
you are.
Thank you. My apologies. I couldn't be here to listen to the discussions that took place yesterday, but we're here now. And my opinion on this is going back to the grassroots, going back to the foundation of this whole digital infrastructure. If you look at this room, you asked where we are now. This room where we are sitting here having this discussion. If you look at the tech that we're using now, if you look at these computers, these screens, these cameras, and the cell phones that people are who are not listening to what I'm saying, you'd find that none of it was made in our context, which brings a very specific problem, that if the tech that we're talking about now is not designed by us, then in what sense is it for us? We're just the end user. Now, the problem here is that the people who design the tech are the ones who ultimately decide what it's for, the rules that govern it, as it were, the infrastructure that is needed for it to function, and so on. So the problem of where we are is that we are still a consumer, and we're still at the end of the technology, end users of the technology that we design. So in my opinion, for us to really start having serious discussions about policies and digital frameworks that govern these things, we need to first of all go back and start producing the tech ourselves, so that we can now also regulate the frameworks that govern that tech. The average my mic keeps disappearing. The average person in Lesotho, for example, drives an ex-Japanese vehicle, which comes with a radio which is in Japanese. So if they cannot operate that radio, then they start blaming the Japanese to say, why didn't you put it in Sesotho? Why didn't you, make it, so that we can make sense of it? That's where the problem is beginning. That's what we are doing here. Infrastructure that we did not design, infrastructure that we did not create, and now we want to engage in discussions that were not primarily designed with us in mind. The lady who was talking, the previous presentation, was talking about satellites and so on, and you would find that they are designed in a specific context, and far from that context. And for us now to engage in that context, we need to also be engaging in the creation of such tech. from where I stand, I think that's where our problems are beginning. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. That gives us a rich foundation to build on as we have our conversation. Now, I would like to go deeper with each of you individually, drawing on your specific expertise. I will start off with Dr. Zimunya. Your work in philosophy brings a very critical lens to the issues of ethics, trust, and human values in technology. And these are areas that are often treated as secondary to engineering. Now, my question is, as we see, digital security is often treated as a technical problem, yet trust is fundamentally a human and ethical construct. From a philosophical standpoint, what does trust in digital systems actually mean? And how should governments embed ethical principles into the design and deployment of digital infrastructure?
Okay. Thank you. First, where it pertains the issue of trust from a philosophical standpoint, you would find that trust is more of a willingness to expose oneself to risk, right? With the anticipation that that risk will not, in some sense, backfire or result in some negative consequences. So you have this idea that if I make myself vulnerable deliberately, then there's that, I don't want to use the word trust again, there's that confidence that the systems that I'm making myself vulnerable to are going to protect my interests, are going to protect my privacy, are going to protect my integrity. So that's what trust means. So as your question rightly points out, it goes beyond the reliability of the devices or the infrastructure that we use. If I buy a new computer today, I trust that as I'm going to open it, I'm going to press something and something is going to happen. That's the reliability side of trust, which goes into the hardware or the physical things that we're talking about. That guy presses the shutter and then the camera shoots. We were talking to somebody who's not here. That's trust in the system, but it goes beyond just the reliability aspect of the devices that we use to now this confidence that as we make ourselves vulnerable to the systems that we're using, our integrity and privacy is also protected. For instance, many people today use online banking apps. Yeah. So when I use an online banking system, when I use an online banking app, I'm making myself vulnerable, perhaps to negative consequences like fraud. How safe is my information on the internet? When I'm transferring money from one account to the next, I need to have that confidence that the bank is going to use my information for the purpose for which the application was created, and that my transaction is going to be safe and secure, and that it's going to do what it was designed to do, at the same time protecting my integrity and so on. So that confidence that my money is safe, even without me monitoring it all the time, or without a constant oversight over the systems, is perhaps what we would mean by trust. To say, if I'm sending a message on WhatsApp, for example, to my friends, my relatives, I have that confidence that the messages are safe, they are encrypted, as if for the majority of people who use WhatsApp, it says that the messages are encrypted, which means that only I and the person that I'm sharing the messages with are the only ones who can decode what we are talking about? What if we're sharing a top secret and or some gossip that we don't want people to hear? And so that confidence that the information that I'm sharing on these online platforms that is the definition of trust. I'm making myself deliberately vulnerable to information theft or some kind of negative consequences, but with the confidence that these systems are going to protect my privacy and integrity. Now, what was the other question?
Sorry?
Just a reminder of the question again so that I pick it up.
Oh, the question was from a philosophical standpoint, what does trust in digital
Right.
systems actually mean?
Yes.
Which I think you have addressed.
Yes.
And the other part of the question was, how should governments embed ethical principles into the very design and deployment of this digital infrastructure?
For governments, I think they need to adopt something that we would call anticipatory governance, as it were, which is a type of governance in which we have this foresight into what's going to happen into the future before it actually happens. It's not a reactionary type of governance where we wait for problems to happen first before we react to them. So if we adopt this anticipatory governance model, then we are able to construct or come up with these frameworks in which this anticipated technology is going to operate under. As an example of this, in Finland, they have this parliamentary level committee that is called Committee for the Future, which has been in operation since 1993, and it's still in operation even today. Its sole purpose is to anticipate future events, future policies, and the effects of policies that we're making today in light of these fast-changing systems that we're operating in today, such as the changes in technology, in AI, in gene technology, and so on. So if we could have a similar type of governance structure where the government its role is to anticipate future problems before they actually happen, to look at the way tech is being developed today and to anticipate future the potential problems that may occur, then we are in a better position to create ethical frameworks within which all this emerging technology is going to operate within, rather than to say, let's wait for the technology to come to us. Then once it's here, it comes with its own set of rules. Then we adapt to its. I don't think that would be a very good way of, because now when the problems start coming, now it tends to be too late to react to the problem. And the other method that governments could take care of these ethical issues is to have this dynamic kind of approach to policy where we design policies and frameworks in such a way that they are self-adaptive to changes, rather than for us to say, after every 2 years, we want to make this change because a change has happened there, or after every 5 years, this policy changes because another change has occurred within the tech framework. So if we have these adaptive policies, as it were, and we use that as our approach to creating these ethical frameworks within which this tech is going to operate, then I strongly believe that the governments would do a thorough job in ensuring an ethical environment within which the tech is going to be operated. That's what I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I like the fact that you also mentioned the fact that maybe our governments should sort of be proactive instead of being reactive, especially when it comes to issues of digital transformation. I would now like to move on to Ms. Ndlovu. Ms. Ndlovu, as governments across Africa and the global south accelerate their digital transformation journeys, you mentioned earlier that governments are already adopting digital ID systems, the payment platforms, data exchange infrastructure. Your work on DPI safeguards is directly on point for the kind of era that we are in. As governments adopt digital public infrastructure such as digital ID, payments, and data exchange platforms, I would like to know, what are the key safeguards that must be in place from the outset to prevent harm, exclusion, as well as misuse of data?
Thank you for that. I think, so building resilient safeguarding systems requires, one, a whole of government approach, where all government departments take ownership of that work. It also requires a whole of society approach, where the academics, my colleague next to me, are doing the research and teaching us how these systems work, where civil society is putting a mirror in front of us to say, these are the ways in which these systems harm people. These are the ways in which these systems harm women, harm children, people in poor communities, people in rural communities. And we need innovators to innovate, and the government to enforce and regulate the frameworks that, to enforce the frameworks that exist. I was doing some work in South Africa last year as part of the DPI Safeguards initiative. And part of that was trying to get the stakeholders within the system talking to each other. Because all these people I've mentioned have one thing in common: they care about the human being, and that human being's rights, and that human being's dignity. However, in many cases, they would be doing important work, but in silos, and they need to speak to each other. And one of the first things I was doing is speaking to civil society organizations in South Africa that are not specifically data privacy organizations or digital rights organizations, because I realized there's a disinterest from other civil society organizations around digital infrastructure. And my argument was, wherever there's a human being, wherever there's an intersection between a human being and technology, there are human rights issues there. And therefore, it should be a part of your mandate, regardless of which group of people you advocate for. You can give us the research and paint a picture of how digitization affects people when they apply for social grants, how digitalization affects people who aren't able to use laptops or cell phones. And initially, it was met with a bit of resistance, because why are you asking us to be in cahoots with the government? And that's not what I'm asking for. I'm saying the conversation between these two important stakeholders, which is the government and civil society, right now is it's marred by mistrust, and it's adversarial in its nature. They speak to each other when harm has already happened. So they speak to each other in court, or they speak to each other in protest. And we have an opportunity to actually bring this expertise into one room, to bring all these people and have them co-create and co-build a resilient safeguarding system that ensures that as we implement and escalate these systems, they actually are for the public good and not causing harm. And so I think the most important thing is for everyone in this ecosystem to be open and willing to work with each other, and know that at the end of the day, we all care about one thing, which is the human being and the safeguarding of the rights of that human being.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, still on Ms. Andisa, from UNDP's regional experience, what practical lessons can countries like the Mountain Kingdom of Lesotho draw to ensure that DPI systems are both secure and inclusive, rather than just creating new vulnerabilities?
I'll give you a few examples of DPIs we can learn from. I mean, South Africa is quite their journey. They're still like at the beginning. However, if you look at their roadmap, they are very clear on safeguards, and one of the first things that they did is adopt the DPI safeguards framework at the United Nations General Assembly last year. But also in their roadmap of the digital transformation of government, they create a very clear commitment for civil society as part of their oversight mechanism. And as a result, and it's ongoing right now, civil society has formed a coalition, which is what I was coordinating last year, to engage the government on how they are designing the system and how they are piloting it and how they are scaling it. And it's not perfect, but you can see that there's a collaboration that is forming between government and other stakeholders in that space. That's on South Africa. If we look at a country like, I was saying earlier that our relative lateness in Southern Africa is an advantage because we get to learn from other people. When Kenya wanted to implement their digital ID, it was halted because there wasn't an adequate safeguarding system around people's data and how that data was going to be used. There were no guarantees of whether or not the state would use people's data for other reasons apart from the intended purpose. And so the High Court then halted the implementation of that system and asked that the government goes back and works on it and answer the questions around the legal frameworks and the governance of that data. So we learn from that experience that you have to build these safeguards into the system, and you do it as you go, and we fix as we go. We don't wait to build the entire system and then at the end of it realize that, oh my goodness, it's creating more harm than good. And so safeguards by design is a thing we learn that we need to do from Kenya. I mean, this country, India is not in Africa, but with their Aadhaar system, they had to cater for the people who are not computer literate. And I mean, Africa has a big digital skills gap where people do not know how to productively use their devices, their cell phones, their computers. And they've created a system where the people who aren't able to use their phone and their computer can go to a center within that community or go to a government department and still be able to get help. So you don't make the system completely digital because there are people who are not able to operate those systems for one reason or the other, but they're still entitled to those rights. And so I think what the government of Lesotho, and I was very happy to hear the safeguarding language yesterday from government officials, is is that they need to take into consideration all the risks and all the questions. If we have a question of how would a criminal use this system, we need to have an answer for that. The government needs to answer, how would a criminal use this system if they gained access to it? How would, if we wake up one day in an authoritarian system, how would that regime use this, and how do we protect people from all of that happening? All of those questions need to be adequately answered at the beginning and not later, because then we spend time, money, effort building something that we're not going to be able to scale because there are all these risks that we're not able to speak into.
Okay, thank you so much for those lessons. I find them quite practical and very helpful, and I believe everyone in the room also gets the sense of how important it is to look at these things from the outset instead of leaving them until a later stage where now harm has been done and there's damage. Thank you so much for that. Now I would like to move on to Mrs. Mufidikwan. As Chief Legal Officer at the Ministry of Communications, you sit at the nexus of law, technology, and governance. And the question of how we regulate what we can barely keep up with is one of the defining challenges of our time. From a regulatory and legal perspective, what are the most urgent gaps that need to be addressed to strengthen cybersecurity, data protection, and institutional accountability in digital ecosystems?
Thank you very much. From the regulatory perspective, currently we have a Data Protection Act, which is partly enforced because the Data Protection Commission has never been established since 2011, which means that there is a gap in enforcement compliance. And in cases that there are data breaches, citizens don't have a place where they could report such breaches. The other issue is that the data collectors, they do not have someone who could hold them accountable. And that's the other issue is for reporting mechanism. The Act requires that they should also report where there is a data breach. But because of unavailability of the institution responsible for data protection mechanism, everyone is relaxing and there is no enforcement to date. Rather, citizens find themselves having to find redress in the court of law. So the second issue that the government should prioritize and review is the legislative process in the country, because we find that the legislative development takes more than a decade for a legislation to be finalized and be enacted into law, even when as SADC countries, there is model laws which have been developed to assist countries into developing their own laws. It's true that we do not have to copy and paste the SADC model laws, but they assist the country into developing its own model laws. So if the division that is empowered to draft the laws can be empowered, especially in the digital technology, to fast track the enactment of the pending legislation, to mention the few, the cybercrime legislation, the cybersecurity legislation, and the e-commerce legislation. They have been in the Ministry of Law for a long time. So while we wait for the laws, the government of Lesotho has revised the measures in which to address the cybersecurity, whereby the Lesotho Communications Authority has given a new mandate to act as the interim national computer cybersecurity response team, so as to address the cybersecurity issues that they can arise in the country. And also to that, there is a national cybersecurity forum to be established where stakeholders will collaborate and share experiences and expertise on how to tackle the cybersecurity issues. Also, there is a need for the sectoral institutions not to wait for the law, because under the cybersecurity bill, sectors will be required to establish a sectoral set. So while we wait for the law, it is recommended that these sectors collaborate and start implementing the cybersecurity measures that are already embedded in the current policies and the international standards, so that our country is not at a vulnerable stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, May. And I appreciate the fact that you are mentioning issues of data protection, the Data Protection Act 2011, which still to date, we do not have the commission where people can go in instances of data breach. And I feel like in this particular era that we're in, where people's data is literally at the center of everything, we really need to have such a commission in place so that people are also comfortable giving away that data, knowing that the data is properly secured and there's a legislation to that effect. Now, with issues of technology, Mema Kamohelo, we realize that technology is moving at a very, very fast pace. How can government ensure that laws and regulations keep pace with rapidly evolving technologies while still remaining practical and enforceable?
I think it's not easy for the legislation to keep pace with the technology as it is evolving at a rapid pace. Rather, when we develop the legislation, the legislation should be drafted in such a way that it does not focus on a single technology, that it is agile to accommodate the principles of security and data protection and accountability. These principles, even if there is a new technology, they will still apply even in the future, because we have realized that even at national level, regional level, and international level, the review of the enabling instruments takes time, which means that as the country, we can't keep up with the technology in terms of regulation.
Thank you so much for that. That is the end of our session, where I was asking our panelists different questions, specifically looking at that different expertise. We still have a few minutes for questions from the floor. I would now like to open to the floor, and please keep your questions brief and directed. Yes, Ndata, you can continue.
Good morning, everyone. Mangangula Tsikinyane is my name, LCA. I'm not sure where to direct it to because you now said it should be directed. But anyway, it's a general question. Okay. Don't you think our problem is democracy? Reason I'm saying, take it to politics. if you look at what Iran is saying now, that they want to take all the tech companies out because the tech companies are spying on them. And you look at China, China doesn't have that problem because they are not a democratic government at all. So don't you think problem e re nang le yona ke democracy e ngata ngata ye ya di iPhone tse re shebileng rona ntse re ya o kae? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. Any one of my panelists would like to take the question? Ms. Adisa, please go ahead.
I will try and answer this question without getting myself into trouble. I think I'll go back to what I said earlier, that I don't necessarily think that democracy is the issue. The issue is enforcement of actual laws that exist. I'll give you an example. There was a case of this guy who would create fake social media profiles to advertise jobs that would be appealing to young women, like modeling, waitressing, all of that. And those women would go for an audition or an interview, and they would then get there and either get robbed or raped, or worst case scenario, and get killed. And in the prosecution of that case, one of the issues was the fact that the tech company where these profiles were created is holding us hostage and telling us about its privacy laws. When we are talking about someone who they are upholding the right to privacy of someone who has taken someone else's right to life. And I think within our frameworks, we need to be very clear when these companies come into our countries that if you do not adhere to these things, yes, citizens have a right to privacy, but you lose your right to privacy when you do this and this and this and this. And if you do not adhere to these, you cannot operate in our country. I don't think a lot of African governments are very tough on that, yes. and so we are now, we are at the mercy of big tech that comes here and takes our data and listens to our conversations, and we just talk about it as if it's a thing that we have no control over. And I do think that we do have control over it because we have laws, and if anyone breaks those laws, they shouldn't be operating in that country anyways. So I don't think it's a democracy issue. It's just an enforcement issue.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I think Doctor has something to say.
Yeah, I do appreciate the insights from my colleague over here, though I sort of get where my colleague is coming from as well, that there is something called, what do you call that, function creep, which entails that something that was initially designed for something can end up being used for some other thing for which it was not designed. For instance, you install CCTV cameras all over town, and we say that this is for security purposes, right? But the problem that I think you're trying to highlight with democracy in particular is that a lot of our, if I can call them our African folk, our African governments, tend not to be as happy with opposition as we would like them to be, which is a hallmark of the democratic space. So how sure are we then that such technology is not going to be used to suppress civil societies, opposition parties, and things like that, which in some cases it has actually happened. So the threat is not necessarily from the tech companies as such. The threat might actually be from our own governments, who might end up, using some of this technology to invade on citizens' privacy, and so on. So yeah, it's like we install CCTV in this room, say we don't want people to steal our stuff. Then we end up monitoring who came in, late for work, and who left what at what time, in the employment kind of setting. So CCTV is a very good example of this. We use it for one thing. It's designed for one thing, but it can be used for some other thing. So I do understand what it means. It may threaten the democratic space if not properly used. Thank you. Oops.
Thank you so much for that. And I would like to mention that in the interest of time, we're just going to take one hand. Then with the rest of the questions, our panelists are available throughout the day to engage with you on the questions that you may have. Thank you so much. I would like to take your question.
Thank you very much, Bernadette Lewis from the CTO. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the panelists. This has been an excellent impartation of information, and I am so thankful. I have a lot of questions, but I'm only going to ask one. The first panelist made a profound, well, I suppose it is obvious that the technology we have was not made for us. Definitely not, right? And we are indeed consumers. And my question is, and I know it's not an easy question, how do you go about changing the mindsets of a people, of governments, of society, in terms of being creative? I need something. I have a problem. Let me come up with the solution. Let me make the device that is going to solve my problem. And the thing about it is, in other countries, in developed countries, this is what happened. And this is why they developed these technologies for them. But there's a commercial value in selling it all over the place. And that is why you'd find the ethos of the Commonwealth Digital Roadshow has been very carefully captured this morning. Whole of government, whole of society, indigenous talent, creative thinking. These are things that have to, critical thinking. These are things that have to be inculcated in our whole sphere of operation. Yes, so I'm just asking that one question. How do we go about doing this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You have partly answered the question yourself, actually, where you say that we need to, have this culture of critical and creative thinking from an early age. And it's not impossible. In the world, we have examples where countries that were not as technologically advanced have actually become world leaders now. And I have in mind China. China used to be known as this country that takes people's tech, makes cheap versions of it, then use it for their own purposes. So they would borrow these ideas. But they have expanded that. If you go into this car park that we just walked in, the amount of Chinese cars that are in there, you would be amazed. Maybe some of them belong to some of you. You would see what I'm trying to say. That now it's competing with those other powers at a global level, such that. So if we adopt a strategy like that, I think governments need to invest heavily in things like tech hubs, and also facilitate ease of doing business with tech companies, such that they can bring their manufacturing side over to our countries, and then our graduates. We have the human capital. That's the great advantage. We have engineers and so on. If you look at the profiles of companies like Google and all these tech giants, you would be amazed at the amount of African employees who are there. So it's not that we don't have the human capital. It's just that we do not have the infrastructure to absorb them and utilize their talents. So they end up leaving the country, go to Silicon Valley, and then become, experts there and show off their talents there. And then we, at the end of the day, lose that opportunity to harness that talent where we are and, bring about that creative prowess within our own context. So it's a long road, but if the governments have that political will to invest in that creative side of our environment, then I'm thinking it's possible, it's doable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. for that. Now, in closing, I would like to say that for a country like Lesotho and for the wider African continent, the opportunity ahead, as Ms. Andisa said, is extraordinary. We are not behind. In many ways, we have the chance to build digital systems that learn from the mistakes of the ones that moved first. Systems that are ethical by design, inclusive by default, and accountable by law. On behalf of the organizers and on behalf of everyone in the room, a sincere thank you to my panelists. You have given us clarity, challenge, and cause for both concern and hope. And that is what a panel like this should have done. Thank you so much. The session is now closed. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you so much for such an interesting panel discussion. We're going to have our last session before our coffee break, and I'm calling upon Mr. Tumani Makhan, who will do a presentation together with Mr. Adam on security. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tumani Mahlwane. I work for Lesotho Communications Authority as the Cybersecurity Manager. It is indeed an honor for me to stand before you to talk to you about cybersecurity incident response capabilities as Lesotho and the collaborations we have been on since we have been established. So I will only be talking to you about these 6 points, a brief story about our evolution, how did we start? And let me also clarify that before I proceed, because I said I'm working for the Lesotho Communications Authority. I'm the manager for the LSCOM CSET, which is the Lesotho Communication Sector Computer Security Incident Response Team. So this, okay, let me go back to the first item that I wanted to discuss, which talks to that, which is the how did we get established? So as Lesotho Communications Sector Security Incident Response Team, we were founded or established formally in December 2024 by the Honorable Minister of Communications, and at that time, that was under the LCA mandate as the Communication Sector CSET. However, okay, a few months following that, we were putting our house in order, the processes, the tools, the necessary measures that we have to be put in place. But in October 2025, the government of Lesotho made a decision to designate us as the LSCOM CSET to be an interim national CSET. That means now our mandate, our responsibilities, it changed from just the sector to the national. So right now, our mandate is to protect all stakeholders, especially those that are vital for national security and economic stability. As such, even our constituency has expanded. So now I will talk to our operation or operational readiness. After the decision by the government, of course, we had to put some processes, we have to do, put the documents, what do you call them, the frameworks or governance documents in place. And we have managed to do that. I'm happy to say that as of March 2026, our board, LCA board, formally approved our charter, which is the National CSET Charter, giving us the mandate formally now to operate as the National CSET. We also have updated our RFC 2350. These are the governing documents, controlling documents that give us the mandate and the authority to operate as a set. So we are grateful or are hopeful that in May 2026, which is next month, we will be formally launched. I'm aware there is a possibility that some of you are not even aware of our existence, but we hope in that event that will be where we get recognition. In terms of the technical stack, we do have tools in place. We have bundled both the commercial tools as well as the open source tools together. With the commercial tools, we are able to monitor our national internet-facing assets. We're able to get some information, some intel from them, and we try to be proactive in that we can detect vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. With open source tools, of course, we have deployed our ticketing systems, malware information sharing system or platform, and other systems, of course. So I would like to say, basically from where we are ready. And we also, just to show that we are ready, then on the next slide, it's basically about what also we have been doing. We have been sharing some information with our constituents. But at this point, let me say, when I'm talking about the constituents, I'm still talking about the communication sector, because formally we are national set after the launch. So we have shared some information, monthly newsletters or monthly cybersecurity updates with the larger community, including our constituents. And we also, as the need arises, we have shared security advisories. I'm sure some of you have seen those or have consumed them. So on this slide, it's also about what we have been busy with. I will not, because I don't have much time, I will just talk to a few points here. But we have been busy. We have been, in terms of capacity building, in terms of training events. We have been busy. We have attended several or different cyber drills, like those those on the first AGMs. The last two events we have been there, the ITU Global Cyber Drills. We are active participants in the SADC cyber drills and other drills, and I must say, we are being recognized out there. Some of you, if not all, you will remember that last year we also hosted the SADC cyber drill in Lesotho. And our team performed very well. If you can remember, we came up as the top team. In terms of training activities, within the short time that we have been in existence, we facilitated or we organized a training that was facilitated by FIRST in March 2025, which was about the open source tools and so forth. And then we also have had a training facilitated by C3SA in December 2025 on DNS security. We also have a program that we are proud of, which is our Expertise Exchange Program for the sector, which is the communication sector, where the experts in the sector, we meet together regularly and exchange expertise and information. So this one we started January 2026, and up to now it's going very well. Now I would like to take you through the landscape, the threat landscape. On the left of your screen, these are some of the prevalent attacks that we see. Not necessarily from the data that we have. We see a lot of social engineering attacks, a lot of deep fakes, business email compromise, online scams, and most of these are even made more difficult for one to see because now they are AI driven. So on the right of your screen, it is the telemetry insights. So this is the information that, as Esther said, we have been able to collect as of April 2025 to March 2026. And as you can see, these are just the numbers. This is just a brief, but the purpose of this screen was to say we are being attacked. Just like any other countries, Lesotho is also facing a lot of cyber attacks. As you can see, during that time, almost 16,000 unique devices have been found infected with different malwares. About 30 or so different or distinct malware families also detected. Almost 6,000 devices with exposed services like Telnet, SSH, and so forth. So we are vulnerable as well. During that time, we have been able to deal with a few incidences like those mentioned there, the stealer logs, the botnets, data exfiltration attempts. Those are some of the issues that we're able to address. On the telemetry, okay, this is also just a summary of the previous screen, that the most exposed network services are those that are listed there. And I will not dwell on this one. Also, these are the top malwares that we see, basically mainly attacking the Android devices. So on this slide, we are also taking intelligence from our constituents. And I would like to say on the left, where there is the red colors, is about email threat activity. And this is from one constituent, one of our constituents. They gave us this data just to show us what from their perspective, what is it that they see. So it's about the messages, the email messages that they detected and were able to block. That's why it says health messages. As you can see, this is for the month of March. As you can see, week 4, we had a peak of just above 1,000 emails that were blocked for that particular constituent. And about 70% of them, of course, are email spam. On the other side, it's a different constituent, where we are talking about attack distribution by type. So these ones are the different web attacks that this particular constituent is experiencing. And that the data is from January to April this year. Different attack vectors, as you can see, remote file inclusion, remote code execution, as you can see, it is the highest attack vector there. So as you can, on the graph, the deeper blue is the critical ones, while the lighter color, gray or light blue, represents the major and minor incidents. So these are the incidents that they've been able to deal with during that short time of space. And the attacks are mainly coming from those countries as listed there, with France on top, then United States, Germany, and so forth. So these slides we are basically saying, when we are saying there are cybersecurity attacks out there, cyber attacks out there, we are really telling you the truth. And if we don't have the means to deal with that, we are not going to. I know, the government, yesterday we talked of the issues or the investment that the government is putting in as far as digital transformation is concerned. And if we are just deploying or digitizing our processes without really putting the measures in place, we will not go far. So let me now move on to the regional collaboration. I will start with locally. Locally, we have partnered with different entities like ISOC Lesotho chapter. And in the last 2 years, we have had successful cybersecurity hackathons for the university students. So by hackathons, we mean we expose these students to different techniques and tactics of attack and defend in cyberspace. But unfortunately, I must say we are still failing to absorb these students, while we are sure that you need those skills. We are also collaborating with Central Bank of Lesotho on the DFS Digital Financial Services ecosystem. We have developed the cybersecurity guidelines, which will be published, I'm sure, in the near future. But we already have a working digital financial security lab, where we are able to use the mobile applications that you use to do your transactions. We're able to tell if they are secure or not. And then we also have developed the cybersecurity guidelines for the telecom sector. Those are some of the collaborations. Regionally, we have been active also. I must say we have an active MOU with BOCRA, BWSET, and they've been very key in helping us to establish our set as well as operationalize it. So we are really grateful for their help. We also have an MOU with C3SA, which is a research center from Cape Town in South Africa. While initially they helped us on the CMM, that is measuring our maturity in 2022. Last year we had a training that I also talked about in December 2025, just to kickstart our collaboration. We have been very active within SADC and CRASA, and we, as of last month, if I'm right, if not this month, we have also been accepted as a new member of the SADC Regional Cybersecurity or SET Task Force. Internationally, we've been active as well. I want to believe internationally we are being more recognized more than locally. We're a member of AfricaSet. AfricaSet, we became a member in October also 2025, just before the cyber drill that was hosted here. And within this short space of time, we have been engaged in different projects where we are helping to enhance their community platforms as well as their tools or systems. We have also been accepted by FIRST as fellows, meaning that FIRST is helping us to attend some of their trainings, subsidizing the costs. We also have an active engagement with ITU. I talked about the digital financial services. We got a lot of help from ITU to be where we are, where I said we have the working lab. We also have the guidelines in place. I must also mention that the commercial tools that I talked to about, they were first made available because of our collaboration with ITU. So now, do we have challenges? Yes, we do have challenges. One of the challenges maybe is the recognition, as I've already alluded to. I want to believe the public and the business community are not fully aware that there is an existing national set in the country. But we hope that will be addressed. But what is the impact? If you are not even aware that there is an existence of a national set, it means many of the critical incidents are not being reported. And if they are not being reported, it means we are also not going to be able to give you a true picture of what we are being experienced as Lesotho. And also, we are not going to be able to assist you in terms of response. So that launch, as we said, is going to be next month in May if everything goes according to the plan. And we hope that will establish us as a country's primary defense hub, where you know that you can always collaborate with us or contact us for issues that have to do with incidents. When it comes to the feasibility, I did mention that the tools that we have, the commercial tools that we have, they are currently restricting us to see or monitor internet-facing assets. So that is the visibility. And remember, we can only protect what we see. That means there are blind spots out there. And meaning that we are not able to see, maybe especially for the critical systems or critical infrastructure providers, we are not able to see the attacks that you are experiencing. Can this also be resolved? Yes, if maybe through your consent, if we can deploy sensors, non-intrusive ones, we can have some visibility there. So that's one of our proposals that we'll put before you as we start our business as the national set. In terms of resources, there's only 4 of us in the team. I must say that team is a great team because of what they have done within this short space of time. But we are not able to operate 24/7 as it is expected of national sets. Of course, our tools, they monitor throughout the 24/7. So now, scaling together, we call upon all sectors. We call upon you, ladies and gentlemen, to not be passive observers. We have been discussing issues of cybersecurity, cyber attacks. We have discussed this for so long. I think it's about time now that we do something. So this brings me to the last slide of my presentation, which is the call to action. Memi Furikwane, when she was on the panel here, she talked about the National Cybersecurity Forum. We will, starting next month or just after the launch, we will come to your offices, we'll come to your doors, inviting you to be the member of this Cybersecurity Forum, where we can share intelligence, where we can share information, where we can strategize. On the legal issues, we also make appeal to our leaders. Memi Furikwane also mentioned this, that it takes so long for the laws to be enacted into acts. Our Cybersecurity Act has been in the Parliament and in and out for over 10 years. It's about time that we have the legal frameworks in place. Ladies and gentlemen, cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. We want to call upon you to collaborate with us. We are ready to help you. Like we said, we have been talking for too long. It's about time that we act. So we will help you if you want to build your own SOCs, if you want to build your own cybersecurity or CSATs, with the experience that we have, we will struggle with you, we will help you. But what we want to propose or what we want to put to you is that we have to act. In conclusion, I would like to say every router secured and every institution on board makes Lesotho a harder target. Thank you very much. I'm sharing the stage with Mr. Smith here. He will be talking to the regional or international collaborations. Thank you.
Well, good morning, colleagues. I have the pleasure of following that inspiring call to action from Tumani there, and I'm also acutely conscious that I stand between you all and your delayed morning coffee break, which maybe some people who were at the reception last night might be in some need of right now. So my name's Adam Smith. I'm representing the UK government, as you can probably hear from my accent. I'm actually normally based in Pretoria, just across the border in South Africa. I work out of the British High Commission there in Pretoria. But I'm in a role covering cyber, everything to do with cyber across the Southern Africa region. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be back up here in the Mountain Kingdom, where it's slightly chilly and reminds me of home. And before I dive into it, I'm going to talk a bit today about why cyber collaboration internationally is so important, and also what the UK is doing in the region, what our partnerships are delivering. But before I dive into it, just a really quick word to say thank you to our CTO colleagues for bringing us together here, for the government of Lesotho for hosting us so graciously, for all the many visiting officials, diplomats, researchers, academics, and private sector colleagues. It's great to be here. So why is collaboration on the issue of cyber so important? Well, we heard yesterday, we had a wonderful discussion about the promise and the excitement of digital transformation and what it can deliver for us in terms of public service delivery, citizen engagement, opportunity, economically and otherwise, the improvement of lives. But today we get to have the conversation around the scary and the depressing, which is the flip side of the coin of the digital transformation, all the risks that come with it, which I think is always a fun and important conversation. So I believe I'm the last speaker on the security, trust and resilience track. So we've already heard on quite a lot of themes to do with cybersecurity risk. Governance risk, resilience risks, etc. But I just want to paint a bit of a picture of quite how severe this is, because I think we often talk about, you know, we're all living our lives online now. It's exposing us on a scale never seen before to risks. In South Africa, I work with an organization that I'm sure many of you know, which is the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And they do a lot of research into the cybersecurity posture in South Africa specifically. They produce some survey-based reports and they do some research on that front. A year or two ago, they found that a staggering 47% of all organizations in South Africa reported at least one cyber attack in a one-year period. So basically half of all organizations are being hit at least once a year. And that's with the caveat that we're all aware of, that this is underreported because it's embarrassing and people don't want to admit to it. That same survey found that 88% of organizations faced a data breach within a one-year period. So what does that mean in practice? That means those of us that engage in the economies in which we live, particularly online, we can basically guarantee that we don't really have privacy, because all organizations in this day and age are targets. So who are the threat actors? Cybercrime is a huge issue. Particularly in this part of the world, ransomware is rising at quite a terrifying pace. Social engineering, that side of things. Whenever I talk about cybercrime, I try to resist getting into talking about the technical side of it, because ultimately what this is financially motivated robbery. It's just happening in a digitally enabled way. But it's not just criminals. What's so interesting about speaking about cyber risks is it really ties into geopolitics. And in the UK, this is something we're having to think really acutely about because unfortunately, the developments over the last few years mean that the world is becoming a more dangerous place. It's becoming a more adversarial place. In the UK, because of some of our alliances and some of the things we've said and done historically, but also recently, we have hostile states that target us. Unfortunately, I see the kind of the extent of that in my role, and it's only going up acutely. So how do we respond to this in the UK? Well, we have our National Cybersecurity Centre. It was really interesting to hear from Tumani about the journey that's being taken in Lesotho here with regards to developing a national cert and setting ourselves up to defend on a national level. So we have our National Cybersecurity Centre that's responsible for that in the UK. And they focus on those two elements, so activity from hostile state actors and activity from cyber criminals. And what's interesting about the NCSC is they're actually an intelligence community organization. So they're pretty much the only part of the UK's intelligence community that is public facing, because they also do all the work around putting out guidance, advisories, cyber awareness campaigns, public information campaigns. But they're quite unique in that the information that they're able to draw upon and act upon and advise us as citizens and businesses upon is also coming from that more covert intelligence community, which I think is a really important point. I'll come on to talk a bit about the importance of information sharing, and it's so important that we're willing to take whatever information each of us in our jurisdictions are able to draw upon and make sure that globally we can have a synthesized view of what's actually happening. So I've spoken a bit about the UK domestically, but we also have a lot of skin in the game in my patch that I cover in my day job, which is Southern Africa, but I think more broadly across the Commonwealth as well. And that's due to historical links, many of which are unsavory. We have to be clear-eyed about the colonial past of this organization, but also very current people-to-people links. To speak again about South Africa, last year, over 400,000 UK nationals entered South Africa, which is just quite a staggering figure if you think what that means about, the scale of tourism, the scale of mutual interaction with each other's societies and economies, the scale of business activity, and the scale of investment. All of that is very positive, but it means that there's a huge attack surface and a huge shared vulnerability. And the threat is also, as a few speakers have touched on today, evolving in real time. So we have to keep up with that. I'm sure many people in the room will have been following in fact, I think it has been mentioned in this room today, the Anthropic Mythos model and the development of that. In the UK, we have our AI Security Institute. They were given access, they were one of the several organizations around the world that were given access to this model before it was made available. Well, it hasn't been yet, but in advance of it being made available publicly, in order to do the security evaluation. And as many of you will have read and seen and heard and discussed, it's quite a step forward in what it allows low-skilled cyber threat actors to be able to do. So our response thus far, kind of immediate response in the UK, has been for both our security minister and our digital minister to write an open letter to all business leaders in the country, sharing the advice and the recommendations around making sure that they have the essentials in place in terms of cyber resilience, because it's never been more important. So I want to talk, just before I close, in a bit more detail about what the UK is specifically doing in our partnerships in Southern Africa. And I think it can be divided into two buckets. So there's policy collaboration, and also there's what I would term as kind of practical collaboration, doing things. So on the policy side, you know, we're working with a lot of partner governments, also non-government partner organizations. You know, we're blessed to have very strong load-bearing relationships across this region on both a bilateral and a multilateral level. And this is really important because it shapes the norms that we all operate under, those of free, open, peaceful, and secure cyberspace, those of responsible cyber behavior, and also it helps us to build, as I mentioned before, our shared awareness and our shared perception and understanding of the threats that we're all facing, and that helps us to coordinate our responses to those. So some of the work we've done in that realm is, you know, holding high-level cyber dialogues. We had one with South Africa in 2024, engaging in institutions, whether they be United Nations. There's been several cyber negotiating tracks at the UN, resulting in the new global mechanism that kicked off last month. The ITU, many people have mentioned, and it would be remiss of me not to say that the UK is, of course, standing for re-election at the Council this year, so we hope we can count on your support. The G20, which of course was hosted on this continent for, I believe, the first time last year. The earlier panel discussed issues such as, I think the phrase was participatory governance and a whole of society approach to cyber governance. You know, this is something the UK really champions. We need the multi-stakeholder approach to survive. We need governments, private sector, academic institutions, civil society institutions. We need them all to be involved in this conversation because it affects all of us. So that's the policy side. And then to move on to the practical side, you know, what are some of the projects that we've delivered, either ourselves or through partners or through funding, that are acting on some of these policy challenges? Well, we've worked with police forces. You know, we can't hope to even scratch the surface of the cybercrime challenge if we're not capacitating our law enforcement ecosystems on digital evidence handling and things like that. We've worked with organizations, some of which have been mentioned today, such as FIRST and Shadow Server, and actually Interpol as well, to deliver projects that are working on building joint and shared cyber resilience across the region as well. And of course, we work a lot with CERTs. We have strong relationships with several of the CERTs in the region, and we've used that to, you know, the superpower that CERTs have is they can convene a community of stakeholders and constituents who all have skin in the game. And we can use that to simulate crises, to do tabletop exercises that make us all more prepared to respond to threats that may occur. I'll also mention a project we did with my friend and colleague David in the audience, I believe it was last year, which was a really exciting one called Cyber Civil. So that was bringing together civil society organizations from 7 countries across Southern Africa that were all facing varying degrees of cyber threats, and put them through a rigorous program, thanks to David's organization, that really built their cyber resilience as well. So let me bring my session to a conclusion now, but I will just finish on 2 main points to recap what I've been saying. The first is that there is no digital transformation without cyber risk. It's the unfortunate truth, and it's something that's being made more acute due to geopolitics and due to the increasing danger around the world. And secondly and finally, countries all face different threats, but we still need to work together to understand where those threats may overlap, and indeed, even if we may be facing different threat actors, what we can learn from each other with regards to how we